Hey, what's up you guys? This is Sentai22 here. How you guys all doing? Bringing you another gaming console review for you. And today I'll be checking out the JVC X'eye. What is an X'eye, you ask? Well, it's essentially a Genesis and a Sega CD in one unit. No need to buy a Sega CD add-on that has two power supplies. With this, you only need one power supply and you're good to go. This is known in Japan as the Victor Wonder Mega. Now, keep in mind, this is the M2 version. The first version was released in 1992, and it was completely different than this one. This one was state-of-the-art. You could say it's like, from what I've heard in a previous review, the Rolls Royce of consoles. Essentially, it had a motorized top tray. You could just press the button on the Sega. Well, it was a JVC controller, but it's actually a Sega Genesis controller, Mega Drive controller. You would press it and it will close and open by itself. You didn't need to close it with your hands or anything like that. It was just really cool, really futuristic. In 1993, they released this version, which was a stripped down version of the Wonder Mega. The only difference is that, for one thing, the motorized tray is gone. They added an infrared wireless controller, which you had to be very close to play it because, of course, it uses the same technology as a remote control, obviously. And of course, in the back, you would have S-Video. The Japanese Wonder Mega M2 had a, because the infrared sensor was here, they moved the wired controller ports in the back here, which is gone, as well as in the back of the Victor Wonder Mega, they had support for S-Video, which unfortunately, as you probably see it right there. This is where the S-Video port would normally go, but they removed it due to cost reasons. Unfortunately, it only supports AV. Now, one thing cool about it is that because they didn't have time to shape the cartridge port of the X'eye, it is great for playing Japanese Mega Drive games. Granted that these games have to be before 1993. Those are the ones that are not region encoding. After 1993, they decided to implement the region encoding for a lot of the Sega Mega Drive games. So I could play Dragon Ball Z, which I will show you guys on the X'eye, and it works. There's nothing to block it or anything like that. So, alright, let's take a look at the design of the JVC X'eye. Very nice. Thing I don't like is the buttons, though. Very nice to the touch. It does feel like a children's button toy or something like that. But either way, aside from the buttons, this thing looks very, very nice. And of course, as I mentioned, this is where the infrared dash here normally would have go, but they removed it for the American release because of costs. Like I said, the JVC Wonder Mega had the controller ports in the back of the system, but in the X'eye they had it right here. Of course, you got your standard power and access lights here, which would indicate that the system is working. One thing about this is really interesting is that when you put the CD, you hardly hear any grinding noise from the system, as you would normally. Say, for example, the Sega Dreamcast or the PlayStation, you would hear a lot of grinding when this disc is moving. So yeah, and here on the side you have ports for a microphone and a headphone jack. The microphone is for the karaoke portion of this thing. It plays karaoke type CDs. Really cool. Now, one thing interesting about this is that it was common for video game companies and electronics companies to work together and make a unit together. As a matter of fact, in 1986, Nintendo collaborated with Sharp to make the Twin Famicom. As well, in 2000, I think 2 or 3, Nintendo collaborated with Panasonic to make the GameCube, which has a DVD as well as a unique wireless controller. It's not really Wi-Fi. I don't know how that works, but I gotta look more into that. But yeah, if it's true, Tom Kalinske wanted, the CEO of Sega that is, wanted to collaborate with Sony to make their 32-bit system. I mean, can you imagine that? Can you imagine the Sega PlayStation? I mean, really, I mean, if they would have listened, if people of Sega Japan would have listened to Tom, they probably would have still made consoles. But unfortunately, they were too stubborn to realize the potential. Okay, I'm going to show you guys this thing in action, so here we go. Okay, now I have this thing set up already, so I'm going to show you guys some gameplay footage of the X'eye. So I'm going to set the camera up here real quick. There we go. Alright. First game I'm going to show you is the Sega CD portion of it, which is Soul Phrase, or Soul Ace, sorry. There we go. It's a 2D shooter, really awesome. It came with the X'eye from the seller, so it's pretty cool. So I'm going to turn it on. Now, for those of you who are, especially for us Americans, if you hear that jingle, that's the international version of the Sega CD jingle. Our jingle for the Sega CD is quite different than this one. So, I put the CD inside. I have to say, this jingle is kind of annoying. I don't know how you guys in Europe got used to this. In my opinion, our Sega CD jingle was a lot better. Here we go. Put this, close the. There we go. And one thing cool about it as well is that you can actually play the game music tracks on this. So, say if I want to see, let's just play. That's actually the first level of the game music. Alright. I guess they wanted to show the potential of this. I'm not good at 2D shooters, as you can see. Oh man. Alright, now let's get into the Genesis side of things, and the first game I'm going to put is, well, the Japanese Sega Mega Drive portion of it. Dragon Ball Retsuden. So you can see it works. Again, bear in mind, Sega Mega Drive, Japanese Sega Mega Drive cartridges before 1994 can be playable on an American Sega Genesis, or Sega Genesis with modification, or with just a Game Genie, or with the JVC X'eye, no problem. Let's see, what matches should I do? I'm gonna do Vegeta versus Goku. Tell you one thing, I grew up in the 90s. In the late 90s, Dragon Ball Z was in syndication. At the time, I still had my Genesis. I did not know that they actually had this. This is before the internet, people. Bear in mind. If this thing would have got a US release here at some other name, I would have just flipped my jaw. I would have had a 90s orgasm. Man, I'm getting my ass kicked by Trunks. As you probably already know, I'm Vegeta. Alright, now let's check out the Sega Genesis side of things. We have left Japan and going to the US and play some Altered Beast.
Live from Northland.
Now, as you notice, you see some light blue lines on the side. That's because a lot of if you play this on an old school TV, you probably won't even notice. But this is a more modern SD TV. I mean, sorry, a ED TV. This is the one that doesn't have the HDMI's yet. These were the only ones that were very compact, but still plays awesome old school games. All in all, it's a really awesome all-in-one system. Unfortunately, this at the time when this thing came out, it was very expensive, roughly around $500. I mean, you can use that $500 to buy the add-on, Sega CD add-on, and a Genesis alone for like $300. So yeah, it's a very. It only sold like 10,000 of these. And of course, if you ever go on eBay, they're very hard to come by. This one, luckily enough, I bought it for a decent price. One thing cool about this is that unlike the other Sega CD add-ons, as well as Sega's very own all-in-one system, the CDX, this one is very reliable. They definitely use a lot of high quality chips and gears for this thing. Whereas the Sega CD, like the CD mechanisms in them will fail. This one is very reliable. As a matter of fact, if you ever find one at a garage sale, chances are the CD may be fixable with just opening the thing and just cranking the gears in the CD tray, just cranking the seat, just moving the gears up a bit, and voila, it would work. And if you pay less than what I paid, then you're lucky. So alright guys, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoy this review. Please guys, comment, favorite, and subscribe. This is Sentai 22, and thanks for watching.